What up, people? Please give this video a like if you like the video. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking on the icon in the bottom right hand corner of this video, and then make sure that you turn your push notifications on so you can receive updates every time we post a video here on the Vaniverse Gaming Channel. Okay, people, welcome to episode 9 of my Conan Exiles Beginner's Guide. In today's episode, I want to cover all the crafting stations, at least up until about level 40. This is going to cover every crafting station you're going to make. I'm going to explain what fuel is used to make stuff in it, what you put in it, and then in the next episode, I will do a whole video on where we gather all the resources in order to fill these. And then the following episode, I'll kind of talk about which locations thralls are that are going to help you to make this much easier. Thralls that I've pulled to this particular location to kind of help with your crafting and whatnot. And then we're going to continue to do more guide type videos. I wanted to do the base build to show people the base and kind of how it works, but now we want to get back into the guide. So without further ado, let's kind of begin here. The first thing we're going to talk about is the large campfire. I mean, basically, if we look at our feats and we go after the primitive cooking campfire, the large campfire is the next thing on the list. And so this is basically a campfire that holds twice as much stuff. One thing I will note is in the last video I talked about fish traps, and this unappetizing fish, if you put this in a campfire, every time you cook it, you're going to get ichor from it. And so we need ichor to make a lot of things. So this is going to be your #1 source of getting ichor. And so make sure that you get those fish traps out and start cooking unappetizing fish here so that we can get the ichor. And then we'll also show you where else we can put these to generate oil, which is kind of what we're going to cover right here. So I've mentioned many times the burn time. In my first couple of videos, I said that coal was the best burning fuel, and people said, no, 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 oil is, no, 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 dry wood is. So I wanted to go over all the burn times with you guys so I can show on a video how it works. So we got our fish in here. So the first thing, the quickest burn time is going to be plant fiber. So if I take 100 plant fiber and throw it in here and hit start, you got 3 minutes and 20 seconds is how long 100 plant fiber is going to burn. 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, so we'll take that out. Now the next one up is going to be branches. So branches, if I throw these in, we got to let this first burn timer go. It's going to end it. So this is one thing to make note. If you're working on a crafting station and you had a fuel in there and it was like halfway done and you throw a different fuel in and hit play, as soon as it burns through the first fuel, it's going to stop. You have to hit play again to make it start burning through the second fuel. So I'm going to hit the play button. And so now this is 8 minutes and 18 seconds. So, you know, 5 minutes more is what the burn time is on 100 branches. After branches, you're going to go to regular wood. So we'll throw 100 regular wood in here. We're going to let the branch burn through. And you can see that down here in my bottom right hand corner, I finally cooked a fish. And by getting that cooked fish, I also got an ichor, which is what we're going to do a lot to farm ichor early on. So this will burn through. So now let's see what wood is. So we're at 3 minutes, 20 seconds, 8 minutes, 20 seconds. So this is at 16 minutes. So there was a 5-minute difference. Now there's an 8-minute difference. It's double. So it has double the burn time as branches. So now let's go to the next one, which is going to be coal. So let's look at coal. So if we throw coal in here, you'll see that, you know, one thing of wood is burning 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, done. Okay. So now let's check out coal. So we're at 16 minutes. 57 minutes. So it went from 16 minutes to 57 minutes on coal burn time. So the next thing I believe is going to be dry wood. Dry wood is going to be next in the list of the best burn time. The way to get dry wood is when you're running around, and I'll show you this gathering, look for dead trees. Dead trees that are lying on the ground, or they're there and they don't have any branches and they're like little thin, frail looking trees are going to give you dry wood. You can also get dry wood in a dryer. So basically what I could do is take actual wood over here and then I can make a dryer. So in my feats here, we'll cover this in a little bit, but the dryer looks like this. you get it at level 19. If you come over to this dryer and you throw in, you see that the dryer's fuel is bark. We need to use bark for the tanner as well, so I would not suggest wasting bark to dry out wood just for the extra burn time. Once you get to the fish trap, it's better to use oil, which we'll show you that here in a second, but you have to be level 28 to unlock the fluid press in order to do oil. Until that point, until you can actually do the oil, if you get dry wood out farming, great, but I wouldn't dry wood out because it's just a waste of bark resources, which is probably the hardest fuel to get in the game. So let's talk about dry wood. So we were at 57 minutes or burn time. This is at an hour and 20. So an hour and 20-minute burn time for 100 dry wood. So obviously that is better than coal. So one piece of dry wood is burning for like 45 seconds, which is very good. So now let's see if oil is a better fuel than dry wood. This might take a minute or two. Look at it cooking. I mean, one piece of wood cooks this long, and you can see that every time it cooks an unappetizing fish, I get 1-to-1 ichor to food. So not only do I get a nice little stack of fish to eat, I'm gonna get all this ichor as well, which is huge for us. All right, get through this burn time and then we'll show you the oil. So we were at an hour and 20-minute burn time for one stack of dry wood. So last one is the oil. Hour and 20 minutes. So there you go. So oil and dry wood have the same exact burn time. They're both the same, and so oil is way easier to get than dry wood. So use coal until you can actually move on to oil by putting down fish traps and then putting it into your fluid press. But basically that's how the cooking thing works. You make your gruel in here as well. Gruel, you just throw in some plant fiber and some seed and you'll start making gruel. So that's kind of what you make in the cooking fire. If I miss anything, just leave them in the comments below, or if you have any questions, let me know. Now, the next crafting station is obviously the blacksmith, and so that unlocks the furnace and the the furnace and the blacksmith bench. So the blacksmith bench is pretty self-explanatory, right? You pretty much are going to make your tools on the blacksmith bench. You're going to make your reinforcements that are used to upgrade your building pieces. You're going to make a glass flask mold. This flask mold is what is used for you to make glass flasks, which are then used for other things. This is where you're going to turn, you can also convert your reinforcements back to bars. And it's really important. See how it costs me 2 to convert and dismantle to steel bars? So basically for every 2 of these, I'm basically getting 1 steel bar and vice versa. To make 1 steel reinforcement, I'm getting 2 bars. But if I have a tier 3 blacksmith on here and I jump him in, not only does it unlock all these flawless and exceptional type recipes, but you'll notice that it now makes the conversion 1-to-1. So getting a level 3 blacksmith is extremely important. It helps you with less resources being spent to make things in your blacksmith bench, and I'll show you kind of where a level 3 blacksmith is near this base and at what camp. Other than that, I mean, the blacksmith is pretty self-explanatory, and I'll show you what the glass flask mold does right now. So the other thing that you get is the furnace. So in the furnace, the same fuel that you use in the cooking fire is used in the furnace. So we'll throw in our oil here, and then basically your furnace is where you're going to melt all of your stones. So if you put in 100 iron, it's going to make you iron bars. If you put in stone in here, it's going to make you brick. Okay. The next thing that you can do in here is you can make steel bars. So in order to make a steel bar, you need to have steel fire and you need to have a iron bar. So you'll see here, steel bar. So for every 100 iron bars, you're going to get 20 steel bars. So it's a 5-to-1 ratio. For every 5 iron bars, you get 1 steel. Okay. Another thing that you can put into the furnace is this glass flask mold. So once you put the flask mold in here, then you can put in crystal crystal actually turns into glass. Once you turn the crystal into glass, then you take the glass, and as long as you have this mold in here, it's just going to start making glass flasks. So that's how you make glass flasks in here, which is then used to make different orbs that you're going to need a little bit later on. A couple other things you can put in here. So if you have like gold ore, you can put gold ore in here and turn it into gold bars. One of the other things is the hardened bricks. So we already said that if you put in stone, you get bricks. And then if you take a brick, which I don't think I have any in here right now, and you add stone consolidant to the brick, it will make your hardened bricks. That is also made in here. I think that's pretty much all the stuff that we cook in the furnace is any kind of stone. Oh, we didn't talk about hardened steel. So to make hardened steel, which you'll need down the road, is all you will need is steel, which I don't even know where my steel bars are. I don't even know if I have any. You'll need steel bars, and then you will need to add brimstone. So brimstone plus steel bars will equal hardened steel bars. So keep that in mind. I didn't show it, but that's how that whole thing works. So that's pretty much the different things that will go into the furnace. Again, if I missed anything, please leave your comments of what you know else goes in the furnace, but pretty much stone goes in there, ironstone goes in there, and then you can turn into bricks and iron bars, and then you combine iron bars with steel fire to make steel bars. You combine steel bars with brimstone to make hardened steel bars. You combine stone consolidant with bricks to make hardened bricks, and then crystal turns into glass, and then glass plus a glass flask mold equals glass flasks. So that's pretty much the furnace. I'm going pretty fast, I understand, but I just want to try and make this video not too long. So we'll get to the Carpenter Bench. Carpenter Bench is like the Blacksmith Bench. It's very self-explanatory. You'll make things like elevators on here. You'll make all your arrows on here. Your bows will be made on here. Your kegs and stuff like that. Some of those will be made on here, and some will be made on the artisan table. But for the most part, this is where you're going to make all your shaped wood, and you're going to use a lot of shaped wood in the future. Similar to any other bench, by having a tier 3 thrall in here, it's going to take the cost down of shaped wood from 10 to 7. So instead of needing 10 to make one shaped wood, you'd only need 7. But that's pretty much the Carpenter Bench. It's pretty self-explanatory. Nothing special there. So the next bench is the Furniture Maker Bench. The Furniture Maker Bench is also, well, it's called Furniture Maker. The bench is called an Artisan Work Table. So the Artisan Work Table is where you can make different kegs and different drinks. These are all just for, you know, just for the look. But the one thing, there are some big things you'll make in here, like your water well. You'll make your vault in here. There's a couple things that you actually craft in here. So the water well is something that's very important for this build, solely because you're really far away from water. So you can see in my inventory, I did make one, and you just basically can place it up here wherever you want. And once you place it, it will slowly but surely start filling with water. So right now you can't see it yet, but eventually a little water will show, and then a little more water, and then it'll be completely full with water. And when it's completely full with water, you can probably take like 25 or 30 drinks out of it before it completely empties out. And that's all at once. So if you just sit here and spam drinking, or you fill your glass orbs with water, you could run out very quickly. But if you're like, you know, filling one flask and then leaving and then coming back, it will constantly replenish itself. So that is the, so that's the Artisan Work Table. Basically, there's a couple items you make on the Artisan Work Table, so you definitely want to have that unlocked. But nothing special. So let's get into the Tanner. So the Tanner, couple things to know about the Tanner. Same principle. The fuel is bark, and then you're going to put in a hide. So like if I put in bear pelt, it's going to give me a thick leather. They're different pelts will go into different types of leather. So certain pelts like bears and some of the harder things like rhinos, elephants, their pelts will actually turn into thick leather. And then they also will drop heavy leather, which also turns into thick leather. And then things like wolves and deer and hyenas. They drop like hyena pelt, wolf pelt, and those will turn into just regular leather. But every time you put a pelt in here and you convert it, what happens is basically not only does it convert that to the heavy leather, but it also gives you tar as a byproduct of cooking. So you are going to be using a ton of tar in this game because tar is used to make steel fire, which you need for all your explosives. Well, most of your explosives. You need steel fire for your steel bars, and also you need tar to make grease orbs. You need tar to make your well. It's just a lot of tar is needed in this game. So you're going to be cranking through so much, and you're going to have so much excess leather you're not even going to know what to do with it, which I'll give you kind of a little tip on that probably in another episode. That's pretty much how this crafting station works. A little note is if you go over to the Armourers Bench, and so to unlock the Armourers Bench, which I showed you in another episode, you click on this little thing here and it gets you the Armourers Bench. If you go to the Armourers Bench and say you get yourself a, right here we have wolf pelt, bear pelt, etc. So bear pelt, I could put these in here and then click on the bear pelt, and it'll actually turn my bear pelt into 100 heavy hide. There are some recipes that require specifically heavy hide or specifically hide or specifically bear pelts. And so this allows you, if you have all bear pelts and you have no heavy hide, you can strip it down into a heavy hide from a bear pelt. So you can do this for all the different types of hides that you can get in the game. So that's pretty much the tanner. Bark. So the best way to get bark is to hit trees that are dead trees, similar to the best way to get dry wood. When you're out and you're farming the dead trees, they give you the most bark. Otherwise, you're just going to be hitting a tree with a pickaxe over and over and over again. So it takes a lot to farm bark. It's a pain in the butt. There is no special tool to farm bark like there is a sickle to farm plant fiber. But yeah, so you're going to be farming a ton of bark and getting a ton of leather so that you can really just get the tar. You don't need all the leather. You're actually going to end up dropping a bunch of it. All right, so now we're going to get to the reason why we have the Thrall Taker is that this is level 1. At level 30, you actually open up the Torturer's work table. And what the Torturer's work table does is it lets you make better truncheons and better bindings. So if you saw in one of my episodes, I showed you guys how to go out and truncheon a thrall and bring it back. These truncheons, they hit harder and they're also more durable. And the same with the rawhide binding. With the rawhide binding, you can drag a thrall further without the binding breaking. So you don't have to repair it as often. So once you get to level 30 and unlock this, it makes getting thralls and dragging them longer distance a little bit easier, but I would still make sure that you keep a little leather on you so that you can repair the binding so that you don't lose the thrall that you're dragging. All right, so the next one is going to be the dye maker in the Fireball Cauldron. So the Fireball Cauldron is where you're going to be doing a lot of stuff. It's where you're going to make your alchemical base, which is used for your map room, as well as it's used for a lot of high-end gear. You're going to need this alchemical base. It's used to make your potions, like we talked about, your aloe. It's used to make your dragon powder. Dragon powder is used in making war paint, and it's also used in making explosives, the explosive pots. And this is also where you're going to make your steel fire, which is tar and brimstone. You're going to make your stone consolidant, which is ichor and twine. So all that ichor you're going to get from your fish that you're putting into your cooking, your campfire. That ichor is going to be combined with twine in order to make this stone consolidant. Now, when you make stone consolidant, it's not one-to-one. So basically, if I put in this and I put in some twine and I click this, you'll see that it says craft 10. Well, for each one that it crafts, it's actually going to give me 5 stone consolidant. So it's not that bad. Like if you put in, you know, if you craft 10 of them, you're really getting 50. So not too terrible. Steel fire is not the same. You get 1-to-1. So for every 2 tar and 1 brimstone, you get a steel fire. So This is actually a real pain in the butt early on. And so having a Thrall, a tier 3 Thrall in this, will make this a 1-to-1. So 1 tar, 1 brimstone, 1 ichor, 1 twine. And so it's very important to get your tier 3 Thralls on your machines because it really cuts down on the resources. Now you'll also notice I have all of these dies unlocked. So this is where you're going to make your die. And so this is the die maker. And in here it will give you all the different dies. And then when you go to your cauldron, it will allow you to then make the dies. So I can do a whole video if you want to leave comments below that you're interested in seeing how dies work and all that. We can get into that, but I just want to kind of cover the machine right now first. Now, here is the key. There are alchemists that you have to pull in. I will show you in the episode where I show you how to get the certain thralls, where to get this Nordheimer alchemist. But as soon as I drop him in, you will notice at the top, I now unlock demon fire orbs, gaseous orbs, and grease orbs. And so right now this is at 3, this is at 7, and this is at 3. That's because I have a tier 3 alchemist. If I did not have a tier 3 alchemist and only had like a tier 1 or tier 2, this would be at like 7, this would be at like 10, and this would be at like 7. So getting a tier 3 alchemist, not only does it open up the ability to create these orbs, it also reduces the cost immensely. And I will give you a secret spot on where to get tons and tons of volatile glands. You don't have to farm the imps. So I have a video on my channel on farming imps and how orbs work, but I found a better spot since then, and we can get into that in the next episode where I show you guys where to farm all the materials. I can show you where to get puffballs, and then obviously we know where to get tar. So you do a lot in this fireable cauldron. This is where you make a lot of the stuff. We didn't unlock war paint, but if we were to unlock war paint, let's get a papyrus skull right here. And then you'll see this nifty, you'll need this decorative war paint right here. This just activates war paint that is for decoration. It doesn't have any stats. But at level 42, you can actually create war paint that actually gives you one of the attributes: agility, vitality, accuracy, grit, etc. And it gives you 3 of that attribute. But now that I unlocked war paint, you can see that if I scroll down, I have to make an inking brush to put it on me. And then it'll allow me to make these different war paints. And then this sloshing fluid, or whatever you want to call it, this actually removes a war paint. So if you have a war paint on and you want to put on a different one, you can actually put this sloshing fluid on you and remove it. So basically that's kind of how this machine works. This is where you make your die. This is where you make all your orbs for throwing and raiding. This is where you make your war paints. So it's a very commonly used machine. So having several of these and having several tier 3 alchemists on them will speed up the process immensely. All right, so let's get into the next one. And the next one is going to be your grinder. So the grinder came in during the Frozen North, and it's really used to make pretty much grind certain things into dust. One of the main things that you're going to be grinding is for the planter. So I have a little planter here, and planting is now something in the game where you can actually take seeds and you can actually plant seeds. And in order to do that, you actually need bone meal. And so in order to get bone meal, you need to grind bone in the grinder. So let's take, for instance, let's see here. Do I have any bone? Yeah, right here. So here's 100 bone, right? So if I come into this grinder and I put in the bone, it's just going to automatically do in bone meal. So bone meal is going to be very important, and it's going to be used in planting seeds for my farming. Okay. A couple other things you put in here. Chitin. If you put chitin in here, it's going to make bone meal. If you put in crystal, it's going to make salt. If you put in gold bars or gold coins, it's actually going to grind it into dust. So it's actually going to grind your gold coins into gold dust and your gold bars into gold dust. You can put in some other things you can put in the grinder are the stone. If you put stone in the grinder, it's going to give you salt for cooking. If you put in, say, plant fiber, it's going to give you spices. So the grinder does certain things. It's mainly used to get spices for cooking, and it's also used to get the stuff you're going to need in order to plant plants in the planter, which I'll show you here in a little bit. But that's kind of what we use the grinder for. Skulls can go on the grinder. Animal heads, or I'm sorry, not animal heads, but any kind of bone related thing like human skulls, stuff like that, that will go on the grinder. Horns, you can throw a horn in the grinder. It's going to turn into bone meal. Fangs, I believe, I don't know if I have fangs, but fangs should go in here too. You can throw in brimstone, nothing. But if you so you can kind of practice, you know, throw in coal. You can keep practicing to see exactly what will smash in here. Your berries will not. That's all going to go into the fluid press. So for the most part, what I kind of covered is what goes in here and grinds. If there's something else I missed, let me know. So that's the grinder. So the grinder was mainly used for cooking food and planting seeds, making the stuff to plant seeds, which I'll show you here in a second. All right. So now the next thing is the Crude Planner. So here's your planner, and this is to plant plants. And you're going to need compost, and then you're actually going to need, so you're going to need a compost heap to make compost, and then you're going to take the compost and put it in the Crude Planner. So this is very deceiving, this compost heap. It actually looks like an ingredient, so you're going to want to go into your planner and just like try and add the compost heap to it, but it's not going to work. Like you're like, why is this not working? It actually needs to be put on the ground right by your planner, okay? So once you have your compost heap, then it says with plant fiber, putrid meat, and bone meal, we'll get compost. So we'll put our bone meal on, we'll put in our putrid meat, and we'll put in plant fiber, and you will see that you have compost. Now, some seeds will not grow unless you have potent compost. And so potent compost looks like this. It's reddish in color, and it's meant to grow some of the better seeds, like for instance, the yellow lotus potions. If you get yellow lotus seeds, you need potent compost to do that. So the best way to get potent compost is to put bones into the fluid press, and it will give you blood. You can put in animal heads, you can put in skulls, you can put in bones. It'll give you bone, and it will give you blood. And so basically the blood is put in here. And then what you can also do is you have to go get raw ash up at the volcano. There's these obsidian rocks, which I'll show you this in the next episode, that you harvest, and it'll get you raw ash. So once you have raw ash and blood in here, and then you put in compost, you'll see that now it's going to take your compost plus the raw, plus the blood, and plus the raw ash, and it's going to make potent compost. So that's how you make compost and potent compost in the compost heap. Just make sure that when you have the heap that you put it down on the ground, because it's placeable. All right, so now we have our compost, or we even have our potent compost. Now what do? So you just take your seed plus your compost, and that's all you need, and time will actually grow. So I don't think I have any seeds on me right now, but yeah, we can use right here, just seeds you get from harvesting plant fiber. So you just throw the seeds in, you have your compost, and you will see it will start making plant fiber. It's that simple, very easy, and you can have as many of these planters as you want, and then you just save up all your seeds. Pretty easy peasy. So that's how the planter works. Just the compost heap is what's confusing. It looks like an actual thing that you would put in the planter, but it's really a placeable on the ground. So that's how that works. So we already talked about the dryer. The dryer, again, is for food and stuff. Basically, you can put different things on here. You can put raw meat on here. You can put raw fish on here. Like I showed you, you can put wood on here. The problem with the dryer is that you need bark in order to use it. So to me, it's not even worth using solely because of the bark. I need all the bark I can get to populate or to power my tanner, so I really don't even bother with the dryer. I would just skip it if I were you. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the fluid press. So the fluid press is pretty awesome. Like we talked about, you put a lot of stuff in the fluid press. So right here, if I want to put in coal. If I put coal in the fluid press, it gets me tar. So if I now have a fluid press, I no longer need coal. Coal is no longer useful to me because now I can get oil. So I put all my coal in the fluid press. You can put putrid meat in the fluid press. I wouldn't because it's now used in your compost heap, but it would work. Now fish, if you put fish in here, it's going to give you oil. So what we talked about in the other episode is the fish trap. By putting fish in the fluid press, it gives you oil. Now you see I only get 10 oil for 50 savory. But if I put in the unappetizing, they give me 50 oil for 50 unappetizing, 1 to 1. So you're gonna get it if you put enough fish traps down, you should have enough of the unappetizing fish to put into your fluid press and cook on the camping fire so that you can get a nice thing of oil and a nice thing of ichor at the same time. So shouldn't be a big deal. Bone and the heads, by putting in all the heads in here, that's where you're going to get your blood. I don't think it works with just this. You actually have to have a head, like a human skull or an elk head or something of that. You put it in here, it's going to crush it, and it's going to give you bone and blood back. So that's pretty much how that works. This is really what I use this crafting station for, but another thing is these berries. So if you have some highland berries, this is what's going to make your highland pulp. So you have these are going to make your desert pulp, and all this is going to be used in your fermentation and your stove. So your fermentation barrel is where you're going to make your alcohol, and your stove is where you're going to make your food, and the fluid press and the grinder is pretty much where you're going to get all your spices, and you're going to get your pulp and stuff in order to make your food on the stove and your fermentation, your beer. Now, why do we want to use food on the stove? Because these meals do a lot of things. One, they heal you for a lot, and two, they're also very, very, some give you warmth and some cool you off. I mean, for the most part, if you eat a warm soup, it's going to warm you. So when you go into the frozen north and you're wearing your armor, you might be in a spot where you're still too cold. And so by eating warm or drinking warm fluids, it's actually going to lower your temperature so you don't get into the extreme cold and freezing. And so that's what we use the cooking and the fermentation barrel for. So you can see purified water requires those water-filled glass flasks. So we showed that here where you go over to your furnace here, you put in your mold, and then you create the glass flask, and then basically you just put that on your bar. You walk over to your well that you put down, and you just click your number. So right now I'm just clicking 1, and you can see I'm drinking all the water. It's filling up on my bar, and then it's done. So then once I have all that, what I can do is I can come in here, and then I can dump in these, and then click on purified water and craft. And now I need a burn fuel, so same as everything else, you need a fire. Let's throw some of that in, and there you go. You're going to have your purified water. So that's kind of how the stove works. And then lastly, the fermentation barrel, same kind of principle. You have your different beers. It'll say sweeter than expected, so like cactus wine, it's cactus, it's going to cool you off. Desert wine is going to cool you off. Highland wine is going to warm you up. Wine with a spice kick. Drink made from fermented honey, that's going to warm you up. Ale is going to warm you up. It says refreshing beverage, so it might actually cool you down. But that's what these drinks are used for. And so these are just the recipes that you get throughout the game. There are lots of recipes that you can learn for both weapons and farming tools and crafting, like armor. There's hyena armor that you have to go get from a hyena camp. There's reptilian armor that you have to get from the dregs, and the same with recipes. There's certain recipes that you learn from different NPC camps. But for the most part, that is going to cover what I wanted to show you guys. I didn't touch on the beehive. The beehive, again, is another thing that's used in cooking. You just basically set it and forget it, like the fish trap. You just put the beehive out, and then eventually honey will just start producing. And then you use the honey in like the fermentation barrel. You use honey to make a lot of your beers. You'll see like right here, there's honey in that one. And yeah, so hops and honey, that's what you use. So that's kind of what the beehive is for. So I think that is everything. I know it's a little bit long of a video. I just want to kind of give you a tutorial on the crafting station. If I missed anything or you have questions on how to make something, leave them in the comments below and I'll answer them in the comments, or in the next video before it starts. I'll kind of cover those as well. Thank you guys for watching. This is Vaniverse from the Vaniverse Gaming Channel. Cheers and peace out.